Hello and welcome. Me is Jason Booker, and on this week's Leeds United debate episode, we're taking a closer look at Archie Gray and judging where he could rank in terms of the greatest academy products of the modern era for Leeds. If you're watching along, please do pop a like on the video and get involved in the debate as well by getting your comments in on what you think we're discussing as well. If you're watching this later as well, please do also leave your comments and don't forget to subscribe to the channel as well. Jason, Mr. Gray, Archie Gray, made the bench when he was 15, when Marcelo Bielsa was there. His impact has been incredible. The number of appearances this season, I mean, remarkable, really, when you consider his age. He's still only 17. Part of the Gray dynasty, so he was always going to have extra eyes on him and his progress, but he's making us all believers, isn't he? He's an absolutely phenomenal player. I mean, talk to me about what you like about him and what is it that stands out with him for you?
Oh, so that's a hell of a start, hell of a question. I mean, I think he's a range of abilities, really. They're very vast, I will say that. His scope as a footballer is massive. But I think the thing that stands off the page the most when I think of Archie is how mature and experienced he looks at only 17. It's almost like he's been doing this forever. It's a bit cliche, but it's like it's what he was born to do. He feels and looks so comfortable on a football pitch. I would say probably his single best attribute is his decision making. I would say that he always seems to make the right choice. You know, whether that's been using his body to shepherd the ball out of play, whether it's to turn inside because the player is going to go towards the goalkeeper, whether it's to turn back and go back to the goalkeeper because the player's covering the inside. I'd say, you know, his decision on most of his passes, you're not going to get them all right when you play the position that he does, but his decision with making the pass tends to always be right. You know, when he makes the decision to step in and make a tackle or stand up his opponent, he usually gets that right as well. And his ability to be able to adapt to either playing right back or centre midfield this season for somebody so young and inexperienced at championship level as well, but no doubt, you know, the championship is a tough league. At the best of times for seasoned pros, you know, you see players come down from the Premier League to the Championship who struggle, and Archie's just taken to it like a duck to water. So, I mean, I could honestly talk all day about his individual abilities, but I would say that is probably what stood off the page the most this season. I just think it's been a joy to watch, and it's, you know, when you have an academy graduate that comes in, whether it be some of the people that we had in that picture there, you know, Delphs and James Milner, Lewis Cook, and I think of others, Matt Kilgallen, Simon Walton, Fraser Richardson, you know, some of these in the more modern era and that have come in, they always get kind of looked after in a slightly different way. I remember Killer as an example. He was kind of talked about as being one of the best centre-backs that we'd had since Johnny Woodgate, and the facts are is it was inflated. It was good. It was all right, but it was never that good. It was never that great. Whereas if we try and take the glasses off for Archie, his ceiling is so high. Yeah. I've spoke on here before about making sure that we just keep it in check and we don't run away with it, because I think if we look back and take away the Gray name, I don't think he's in the team because of the Gray name. I don't think that at all. But I think the excitement has been magnified because of the name. You take that away and remember just how good Lewis Cook was when he came in, and I think personally more when Delph came in, when Fabian Delph came into the team, his ability was nuts good. So was he better than them? Not sure. Yeah. We'll talk about it.
Yeah, absolutely. We're gonna have a look back. We're gonna take a look at certain Leeds Academy products from kind of the last 20 years, really, the modern era, to kind of gauge Archie's impact and the potential that Archie has. It's fascinating, actually, isn't it? Because I always think, you know, so many players have come through this Gray dynasty, Andy and obviously Eddie, Frank as well. I mean, it's always strange, isn't it, with football? It's like genetics and it passing through, and it quite often, you know, you'll have a superstar and their kid doesn't quite following their footsteps. You know, I think the famous ones like Johan Cruyff and Jordi Cruyff, obviously, never matched up to it. But it really feels with Archie, I mean, he could end up matching up to Eddie Gray and maybe even surpassing him in terms of titles and everything like that, really.
Possibly. I think it's a tricky one, isn't it? Because if you're Johan Cruyff's son, the
a lot of pressure that into
and the potential to be better than your dad if your dad's Johan Cruyff is so small. you kind of got nowhere to like. You just can't win, can you? Yeah. Jordi Cruyff was a good footballer in his own right, but he was just never going to be as good. And I mean, he's not on his own. There's several others that have kind of come throughout the years. I think of Andy Cole's son. Devante, he plays for Barnsley still now in League One. It's extremely difficult to kind of follow in the footsteps of somebody that was so good. I think maybe, you know, Andy suffered with a little bit of that in the family names himself. Because, you know, especially when he came onto the scene at Leeds, he was following in the footsteps directly of Eddie and his dad. So whereas Archie doesn't maybe have that, there's a bit of a gap in between. I definitely think genetics plays a part of it, but I think the upbringing is probably the big part. You're brought up around it. You know, Archie will have been in and around football clubs, not necessarily Leeds, per se, but following his dad, he'll have been in and around academies and football clubs since he was old enough to walk. You know, he'll have experienced footballers and be very comfortable in and around that environment all the time. So when he's then, you know, started being in and around the first team at 15 or 14, 15, that will have been very normal to him. He'll have still been excited by it, I'm sure, but he will have certainly taken to that far easier than I think a lot of academy graduates that would be stepping up for the first time. And it's clear that he's had really good parenting. I think of that when I think of Archie, and I see the way that he acts and carries himself, even the way that he talks to the media. Like he's very mature, very professional, but he doesn't look fazed by it in the slightest. So yeah, I think it's both, mate. I think it's genetics and the upbringing attached to it. You know, Eddie's such a great guy as well, isn't he? And I mean, obviously Frank hasn't and didn't have the connection to the club in the way that Eddie has in terms of staying in and around the club and being a part of it. And you know, Eddie's so well thought of by Leeds fans that Archie almost can't fail. He literally can't, can he? So I think that's a good thing, though. You know, as much as we gas him up from times, I think the fact that we are so far behind him allows him to kind of play without any fear or pressure.
Yeah, I know what you mean. It's just embedded, isn't it? It's just all the tools are there. And I think you're absolutely right. I mean, it's fascinating when you look at it as well from the point of view with Andy, certainly as well, because I remember when he broke into the Leeds team and he played in the 96 Cup final against Villa, and he was our best player, to be honest, the only player who performed on the day. Yeah. And you thought, wow, this is going to be the next Eddie Gray for Leeds. It didn't quite work out that way. And funnily enough, the production line doesn't end with Archie either. You've got Harry, who I think is a few years below. I think he's about 14, is he now, or something?
I think he's 15 this year.
15 this year, and he's a striker apparently, and he's meant to be an unbelievable prospect. I think Man City was sniffing around him along with Finlay Gorman when that whole thing was going on. So I mean, it just goes on and on, doesn't it? I mean, if Archie and Harry ever have kids themselves, it'll be like, right, sign them up. Come on.
in the wheel, in the pushchair, you're signing them contracts. I do think the dynamic of Harry is interesting, because I could almost see that keeping Archie around for a bit longer than maybe we would be able to if Harry wasn't there. And that doesn't mean I think Archie wants to jump ship, but there's so much money on offer now. The footballer's career is short anyway. The offers that he's going to have over the next couple of years are going to be very lucrative. But I do think there's a case to say that Harry and him being able to potentially play together for Leeds United would be high on his agenda of things that he would like to do. I would imagine.
He said as much in an interview as well. I saw him in an interview basically saying that, like, he really wants to get to that point where he's playing with his brother one day.
That'd be amazing, wouldn't it? I mean, it would be absolutely amazing. And, you know, I know it's hard for these players to think of the long-term futures at such a young age, at 17. But in terms of what happens to a footballer's career once it ends, you've seen Ed. Eddie's never had to worry about what he's going to do day to day since he retired from playing football because of Leeds United and because of the connection that he has to Leeds United. And there's other players, I would say Jermaine Beckford, I kind of put him in this, even though he's gone on to have other clubs and he's played for other clubs for more games than he played for Leeds. He's connected to Leeds in a certain way that means that he never has to kind of worry. Don Matteo, I would say, is the same.
Yeah.
There's these players, and I think if Archie just looks a little bit further on, and this doesn't mean that you then turn down the opportunities of a Manchester City or whatnot, if it's such a cataclysmic kind of rise, then fine. If we're still in the Championship, he needs to go and play top level football. But if we can carry on progressing in the same way as Archie, then there's no reason for him to leave, and he would have so much attached to the Leeds United connection for his life if he was to stay. It'd be interesting.
I mean, that would just be amazing, wouldn't it? As the club kind of rises back up, there you go. You got your homegrown talent who's at the forefront of it, maybe a future captain, who knows? I mean, it would be amazing to see a player rack up hundreds and hundreds of appearances for again. It happens pretty rarely. And some of the homegrown talent that we're going to get to very soon, they didn't stay at Leeds very long in their careers. And it was always something when Leeds were in the depths of League One and mid-table Championship obscurity that you'd see these great potential players leaving the club. And it always was like a bit of a stab in the heart, really, when you lost one of your prime talents. I used to absolutely hate it because you just thought, they've been at your club for, 10 years in the academy, you've produced them. And it was for the club, obviously, just wasn't in a situation at all to keep any of these players at the time, and we'll go through the rhyme and reason of that. Just one thing before we get to that: if we don't go up this season, do you think he leaves, Archie?
No, I don't. I think we have at least one more season with Archie. I think it's what's right for him. I think he would recognise that. I think his family would recognise that. I think they would also recognise the fact that them opportunities wouldn't disappear for another year at Leeds. I also think there's an avenue to say that the clubs that would be in and around buying him wouldn't be prepared to pay the fee for only one season of Championship football, because I think Archie's going to command 40 or 50 million. I think that's where the 49ers will be at. I think there'll be very much a case of, FFP plays a part in it because it's an academic product. We have raw full profit on him. So there's an avenue to say that 25 million for him is actually worth more than 40 million for Rutter, as an example, because of the amount that we paid for Rutter. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
so it's the FFP loop in it because of this is why Conor Gallagher's potentially going to leave Chelsea for 30 million, because he cost them nothing. It's a tough one, but I would be stunned if he were to leave in the summer, regardless of what division we're in. And I think you'll see him progress and develop further on for another season with us. The next summer would be interesting, regardless of what league we're in, because what's going to happen then is he's going to be 19 and he's going to be at a prime age where a Man City, a Dortmund, or somebody of that ilk, maybe even a Madrid, would want him to then develop him further into the player that they need him to be, rather than the player that Leeds want him to be.
Yeah, absolutely. And that pure profit, and I hear this phrase so much over the last year with obviously Chelsea and Man City selling academy products and what that does for your FFP situation. It'll be interesting to see if they get tempted to cash in on that, if it's a big offer. All right, well, let's have a stroll down memory lane then and have a look at some of our previous academy products. First one I want to start with on the list is probably, he's had an interesting career. It's Lewis Cook. Now, when he broke onto the scene, he was kind of touted as the next big thing. He's probably less successful in his career than some of the other guys that we're gonna get to on the list. He's got one European under-17 championship and an under-20s World Cup win with England. Fabulous, fantastic achievements with your national team at any level. Career-wise,
full international as well, Brownie.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, absolutely. Someone who broke into the league team very young. Very straight away, you could see that he was on that kind of level where you're just thinking, "Wow, who's this? Who's this guy?" I mean, what are your memories of the impact Lewis Cook kind of made when he broke through? What did you think of him then?
I mean, as a deep playing playmaking midfielder, he's silky, beautiful, like just a really, really beautiful footballer to watch. Reminds me very much when he first came in of what we saw with Lewis Bate in Spain in little bursts. I'm not saying that Lewis Bates is good, he's not, but in terms of the way that he carried the ball, the way that he turned in confined spaces, and you could see right from I would say his first summer, the pre-season that he first came into the team, that it was almost an upgrade on the other players that we had at the time. Because if you remember back, we really struggled for quality at the time. You know, we had players like Tamani Diagaraga, I think Rudolph Austin was still around then. We had we're on the back of Michael Brown and Michael Tong, and you know, we didn't have a lot of quality. We didn't have a lot of quality in that midfield at all. And Lewis Cook kind of gave us all of that, really. And I think it was clear very early on that we were only going to have him for a period of time before he would be kind of whisked off to the Premier League. And at that time, we weren't the club that we've been over the last 5 or 6 years, where we actually had some ambition. It never looked like we were going to develop anything outside of being mid-table fodder in the Championship. As much as we all hoped one season we'd flirt with the playoffs, that's not the truth of the matter at the time. So when he then ended up moving, I remember at the time thinking that Bournemouth was a really poor move for him.
I was like, what, Bournemouth?
It didn't make sense to me. It did. You know, we'll go on to one of the other ones later who ended up moving to Villa first, and that kind of felt like the step up at a team that had ambitions, that were working towards a top 10, and you know, proper grounds, proper. I mean, I thought at the time he wouldn't have looked out of place in any team in the country. Like, you would imagine that he would have been signed and then developed in a Spurs or, you know, an Arsenal. I know he's been linked with Arsenal since before the injury that kind of hampered him so much. But yeah, it always felt like a really weird move and a poor move for me.
And you know, I'm looking at kind of his career appearances, you know, and he's been at Bournemouth a long time now, since 2016, and he's suffered obviously 2 horrendous injuries. I think it was 2 ACLs that he did. You know, he was out for a long time. I do feel with Cookie was someone, if he hadn't have had those injuries, could have gone further. I think I definitely think he would have, you know, played for a top 6 team. And you know, he's at that age now. I mean, what is he? Is he 20, 28, 27 at the moment? So, you know, he might get a late flourish. He might get a late move depending on what happens. But do you think he's not quite fulfilled his potential, but unlucky not to do so, really? The injuries more than anything.
100%. When he had that injury, he'd recently played for England. He'd made his England debut. And Arsenal were in and around. There were big rumours of him moving to Arsenal. But that were back in 2018. I mean, I've had 2 ACL injuries, and I know how difficult it is. And I know, you know, they have professional physios to help them rehabilitate and come back. But it is a debilitating injury, especially in an area of the pitch where you're doing a lot of twisting and turning. It's extremely difficult to be the player that you maybe once were or potentially could have been down the line. So I don't think he'll ever reach the full potential of where he could have done earlier on in his career. But I still think he's had a good career. I still think he's had a very, very good career. You know, he's played predominantly at Premier League level. I still see him now playing extremely well for Bournemouth. Most games that I see Bournemouth play, I think he's a top player. But he definitely could have gone on to have more, but I don't put it down to him. It's not like it's an attitude thing. You know, injuries happen in footballers' careers, and then the paths take different, you know, turns. So
yeah, just one of them, isn't it? Next on the list, we're going to go back a little bit before Lewis Cook's time. It is Fabian Delph. He was, for me, the real special one after the kind of O'Leary implosion and relegation and everything that came about that. I mean, Fabian Delph, he kind of broke through into the team around about 2006 time is when he kind of first popped up. And I mean, straight away, you could just see what a player he was, Jason.
He was a joke. I mean, I actually played against Fabian for school. Yeah, he's exactly the same age as me. I used to work with his girlfriend at 16, 17. He's a Bradford lad. So it's from my neck of the woods. You know, if you ever hear him speak, he's such a Bradford lad, it's untrue. Like, he's got the dullest, most boring Bradford accent ever. But when he broke through, I mean, I remember him making his debut. It was the day that we got, it was the last game of the Championship season. It wasn't the day that we got relegated against Derby away, and we were just imploding as a club. Him and Robert Bailey ended up, I think they started the game in centre midfield against Derby. We ended up losing 3-0, I think it was. It was just dire times as we went down to League One. But this lad was a joke at League One. He was a joke. And this is why it's difficult to kind of compare their times at Leeds with Lewis Cook, because I always remember Delph as being better, but he was at League One level, whereas Lewis Cook was at Championship level. But Delph's ability on the ball, his speed, his passing range, I mean, how quickly he could carry the ball. I mean, if for those of you that haven't seen it, I'm sure most of you will have seen it, but go and watch his goal against Brighton away.
Yeah.
The ball gets cleared from a corner and Delph picks it up just inside of his own half, and he carries the ball the whole length of the pitch before curling it in from the outside the box. It's an unbelievable goal. He scores 2 against Warsaw at home that always stick out as well. Ball from outside the box. His technique at striking the ball was just an absolute joy to watch. And like I say, it was a joy in League One. It was a cheat code. It was so much fun to watch. He was so good. And, you know, for me, with the exception of the next player that we'll get on to, he's probably our best product of the last 30 years. You know, when you then think to what he went on to achieve, he got a great move to Villa. Got a bad injury there, which then ended up resulting in dropping back on loan to us. Some people forget that we had him back in the Championship.
Yeah, we did. Yeah, I know. I totally forgot about that.
Only 2 or 3 games, and then he had an ankle injury. Ended up breaking his ankle. I think it went back. And he never hit the heights when he came back to us. But he eventually made it through at Villa. And I think his reputation was kind of tarnished with the fact that he said he wanted to stay, got made captain, and then the day later he was out and gone to Man City. And I think he got hit with the snake vibe. But the facts are, it's Man City, innit? Like he had an opportunity to go on, and he did then win Premier Leagues, FA Cups. You know, I think it was 20 summer appearances for England. Top player, top player.
Yeah, you're looking at it. I mean, 2 Premier League titles, an FA Cup, 3 League Cups, and like you say, 20 appearances for England. A top career. Retired, probably fairly young, but comparative to, these days, but obviously injuries and everything took its toll, but really went right to the top, didn't he? And kind of got reinvented, didn't he, as a left back and all that kind of thing, didn't he, as well, later in his career too.
I think he ended up playing the left back role for Pep because he had an understanding of the obviously being a midfielder, he could kind of combine the two. And I think Delph was actually the start of him playing inverted fullbacks. I think that's where it actually started. If you look back, because before that, Manchester City didn't have inside fullbacks, and it started with Delph. And I think that kind of hit his England career a little bit because he was then never played in his proper position. So then for England, he didn't make as many appearances in that midfield role as he maybe would have done if he had carried on playing centre midfield. But the facts are, he wasn't to the standard of some of the other Manchester City centre midfielders, the likes of De Bruyne that then came on and took them positions, which is no discredit to Delph. And he definitely was hampered badly by injuries. But again, the ACLs, they impact different parts of your body. As a footballer, you put wear and tear on your ankles, your hips, to kind of counterbalance the problem that you've got with your knees. So by the time that Fabian was 33, he was on his way out. I mean, he struggled like crazy at Everton, didn't he, to ever stay fit, really. So, just a top player. I just remember him so fondly.
Yeah, it's interesting because it's almost like a period of Leeds United's history I've kind of blacked out, or I try and forget as much as I can about it. But actually, there were a lot of bright spots, and Delph certainly was that.
So good.
This one I've thrown on the list. I don't think we talked about having him on the list before the programme, but I had to throw him in there. It is the Yorkshire Perlo. He is an academy product. He's recently moved to West Ham. It's not been a great start. A couple of errors in his first couple of games. But you look at what he's won, all right, admittedly, he might have not played too many times last season, but he has got a Champions League, a Premier League, and FA Cup to his name. And most importantly for Leeds fans, he's got a Championship title. Different to the others, Jason, in the fact that took a while for it to get going for Calvin Phillips. He was never the flashiest player, not the most talented player, not someone I think we thought would, kind of lead us back to the Premier League. Certainly not when he broke through, but someone who that connection he had with Marcelo and what Marcelo did for him just took him to a whole new level, and he's scaled the heights, hasn't he?
It's funny, isn't it, that all these players that we're talking about are midfielders?
Yeah.
I didn't even really click to that before.
No.
Bringing Calvin into the chat. I mean, we have had some other great youngsters, but maybe none that have developed quite as much as centre midfielders, which is interesting. But I mean, Calvin's a funny one. I love Calvin, and I was not for a second discrediting his move to Manchester City. It was the right call. Even though now we see after 2 years he didn't make it in the first team, it was still the right call. And I would argue until I was blue in the face for any Leeds fan to come on here and tell me that he should have stayed, because he shouldn't. For him, personally, he had the opportunity to go and play with the best players in the world, with the best manager in the world, and try and prove himself to be one of the best players in the world. Now, sure, he didn't reach the heights of being one of the best 11 players. Not even one of the best 11 players, being one of the best 3 players in the world. Now, think about the scale of what that takes to be that, because that's what he would have had to be starting in a Manchester City centre midfield. So, for me, he did exactly the right thing. I mean, we imploded and then got relegated. So, what, he should have stayed into that after finishing 17th the season before? No, not. It just makes no sense to me. It's just,
he did stay with us. He gave us another year when he could have gone to Villa, couldn't he? After the
exactly
season,
and then he stayed into the second season. He could have gone at the end of the first Premier League season when he was riding the crest of a wave. He could have gone then, put in a transfer request. He didn't. The opportunity to then go to Manchester City was there for him. It just, he was replacing Fernandinho, who was then, retiring or moving back to Brazil. I can't quite remember. He had that opportunity, and for me, he went with all the blessing. And in terms of him as a player, I don't think of him the same as Delph, Cook, Archie, and the other person that we've got on the list, because natural talent, he doesn't have as much of it. He's not as good naturally as Lewis Cook is, and he's not as good. He's not as good as Delph was naturally either. And I think Archie will probably have more of a natural ability than Calvin. But what Calvin did have was bucket loads of courage, determination, and he made the best of exactly what he had. And the perfect concoction with Marcelo was he found a perfect role to play Calvin in. He identified straight away, before any of us did, we all thought he was an 8 or a 10, which is crazy now looking back. Marcelo identified in pre-season that, you know what, Calvin, you're a 4. Like, you've got a great passing range, your long ball, your distribution's fantastic, you read the game extremely well, and you like a tackle. And he managed to put all that together into him being one of the best defensive midfielders in the country for a period of time. Yeah. We talk about Delph making 20 appearances for England. Calvin's made 31 appearances for England.
I was going to say his advantage over the rest of the people on the list is he has been a mainstay for England. He's been not just a periphery player and everything like that, which I think even the last guy on our list that we're going to cover has never nailed down a proper place in the England team. Whereas Phillips was, he won England Player of the Year, and that 2020 tournament, phenomenal. I mean, the impact, it kind of woke the country up to what this guy was about.
The problem that Calvin's got is his skill sets are very specific, and they fit a very specific role within a formation and a tactic. So when you're then trying to play in a fluid system like a Manchester City system, unfortunately, he limits them more than helps them. But that's why he was so perfect for Bielsa, because Bielsa needed somebody to just do that role in that position. I mean, we saw the stats when KP came out of the team, a Bielsa system didn't work the same. Just like Bamford and KP were the two. We couldn't be without them. We could drop anybody else, Harrison, Costa, Alioski, even Hernandez to a point, we could live without. But if either of them two were out, predominantly Phillips, we struggled. We really struggled. So, I think that's where KP's kind of, it's his positive and his negative. I think you'll see him go on to have a really good next 2-3 years in the Premier League.
I was going to say as well, because I he's a player I've kept a close eye on since he left Leeds. I don't really do that with former Leeds players, to be honest. There's a lot of Leeds players, they come and go, and it is what it is. But Phillips, I have a special attachment to him because I just think, the Yorkshire Perlo, his reinvention at Leeds, the fact that he got us back to the promised land of the Premier League, and he's got this kind of rapport with Bielsa, this special relationship with Bielsa, which I love as well. And it's not worked out at Man City. I do feel that I'm a bit disappointed in Pep. I'm not going to lie. In the Man City machine, I think surely you would have known that this wouldn't quite have worked, as well as it has. I'm gutted to see at West Ham that he's made a couple of mistakes already in his first couple of appearances. I feel he's fighting a narrative now. I don't feel that it's just he's trying to fit in at a new club. I feel there's a whole media narrative building up of, oh my God, Phillips is just, he's lost the plot basically. And
I think that's true.
He's on the down.
That's very true, Browney. I think it's very true. And I also think he's a bit of a confidence player.
Yeah.
I think he was very comfortable in his environment at Leeds, and even more so with Bielsa. He felt special. Whereas I do worry for him that he now has to kind of forge that path on his own. I think there's a few of them in that squad that were like that. I think Pat, exactly the same as that. Yeah. It's a tricky one. I think he can do it because I think technically he's still a very good player in that role and in that position. I think he made the perfect move to West Ham.
Yeah.
I hope they sign him permanently because I think that's a perfect kind of environment, crowd, position, manager. I think David Moyes is good for him too. And he'll work to get the best out of Calvin. So it's going to be interesting. I'm a bit disappointed in Pep as well, but I also think it's a juggernaut there in it. Yeah. And the facts are is he was competing with Rodri, who is the best defensive midfielder in the world. I mean, he's so good, Rodri. Yeah. So good. So yeah.
Does he ever pull on the white shirt again? Do you think that will ever happen in the future?
I was thinking that a minute ago. 100%. I 100% believe he will. I 100% believe he will.
Coming back, kind of thing. Second.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. I think we get back to the league. I would imagine that we'll be linked with him every single bloody transfer window.
Would he work in a Farker system? Do you think? Could he do?
He could do the Ampadu rule, the Gruev rule. Yeah. I could see that. I think it's different in the Premier League than in the Championship because we're going to spend a lot longer without the ball, and we'd also look to go a little bit more direct in the Premier League, I would hope. So he would fit even more so in that than this. You see, I think of him very similar to Ampadu, and I think that's why Gruev is better at the moment. Yeah. But if you were to take this team into the Premier League, and we'll see it against Chelsea, like hopefully we get to kind of experience it, Ampadu will look far better in that role than Gruev. If I was to be, and we're going on a tangent here, but if I was going to set the team up for Chelsea away, I'd be playing Ampadu in the midfield and I'd be bringing Gruev out because I think we're going to spend much more time without the ball, and I would want the defensive mindset of Ampadu, similar to Calvin, in that role.
Yeah, great point. Okay, so the last person that we're bringing up on our list, the last academy product we're going to talk about is a man. I mean, a phenomenal career. It is James Miller. There he is, all fresh faced when he was 18 and playing for Leeds, or possibly 16 at that point. Actually, let's just kind of remember what he's won in his career. It's staggering, really. 1 Champions League, 3 Premier Leagues, 2 FA Cups, 2 League Cups, a FIFA World Club Cup. He's second on the list for the all-time Premier League appearances. He's just one behind Gareth Barry. Sits there on 634 appearances. We should give a shout-out to Gary Speed as well, who's 6th on that list. I mean, let's go back to the start when Milner broke through. Obviously, he came in after O'Leary left. It was kind of getting out of control. I remember him coming on. I think he scored against Sunderland, then he scored a couple against Chelsea, made an unbelievable impact. And I think we all thought, wow, who is this? This is the next player. I mean, straight away, 16 years of age. I mean, it was a similar time when Rooney came through. He was just after Rooney, wasn't he? And I think he pinched Rooney's youngest player to ever score in the Premier League title at the time as well. Yeah. But another one of those Leeds products that just phenomenal right from the off.
He came through as a striker as well. People often forget that. He actually made his kind of starting appearances for Leeds as a striker. I remember the game where he scored, I think his first goal against Chelsea at home. I think he played against scored against Sunderland away, and then Chelsea at home, or the other way around. I can't remember.
Yeah, I think it was right
around Christmas.
It was right around Christmas. Yeah, I remember it. I think it was the Sunderland one first, and then the Chelsea one.
And you think about the career that he's gone on to have, and the positions that he's played in as well. You know, managers have trusted him out wide. In his early days at Villa, I remember him and Ashley Young on either wing. Man, they were frightening. They were so good. I mean, Milner was quick. His determination, his passing range was excellent. His finishing was excellent. He took penalties for Villa at a young age. His composure, his maturity, and his unbelievable kind of ability to constantly be fit. And he still even now finishes off the bleep test. He's the best one in pre-season at 38 years of age with nothing left to prove. That mentality it's unnatural. He's played at left back for Liverpool in big European ties, a position that he's completely really not comfortable with, and taken to it. And sure, as he's got a bit slower, he started being exposed from time to time in certain scenarios and situations, but even now he's still trusted to play a lot of games for Brighton this season, who were a progressive team who only signed young players, really. Why did they sign him? They signed him because of what he can still bring to a top club. Yeah. For me, he's without a doubt, in my opinion, our best, and this is a big bold statement, but I think he's our best ever product, and I would say of all time. And that's a big statement. I know we've brought through some unbelievable footballers, but you look at what he's gone on to achieve and the clubs he's played for, winning Premier Leagues at Manchester City and at Liverpool, European titles at Liverpool, the amount of games that he played for England. I mean, he only played 61 times. He only played 61 times for the senior national team, but he also played over 45 times for the under-21s, which is just unheard of. Like, he played so many under 21 internationals for England. He could have played 110 caps for England if he'd chose to. He retired quite early. I don't know why he chose to retire from international football so early, but he did. And I think, for me, he's just an unbelievable footballer. To be able to command the centre midfield position after not starting as a centre midfielder as well, probably the most difficult position on the pitch to play. Just a great player, great professional. And it was such a shame that he had to leave when he did. I've heard a few interviews with him. He came back for the summer that we got relegated to the Championship in 2006, was fully expecting to play, didn't want to leave, came in through the doors and was told, "You're going to Newcastle, off you go, get back out, like we've sold you, you're gone." and that for me is just unbelievable. And the amount of times he's flirted with coming back. Like, I think apparently we were trying to sign him this summer, just gone again. I don't know if you heard that. It came out fairly recently. And apparently we came in too late. He'd already accepted to go to Brighton and he were already kind of moving down there, which, I mean, massive shame, massive, because what a player he would have been in the Championship. Oh my word, what a player that he would have been this season.
Would have been perfect. What a perfect homecoming that would have been as well. I mean, you look at the clubs, you've mentioned Man City, Liverpool, but literally every team he's played for has been an absolute top club. Newcastle, Aston Villa as well. Obviously, this Brighton team now are in such a great position. And I think what impressed me with Milner as well was his reinvention at Liverpool, because I remember when he left Man City and it was almost like that he's going to be going down now. He's going down the ladder, and it's not, Liverpool at that time initially, I mean, it was 2015 when he went in. So I think was that just before Klopp had got there. I think, and it was a kind of one of those times where you're like, Liverpool, they're not at the forefront here. And then he's gone on to make 230 appearances for Liverpool since 2015. I mean, it's absolutely staggering stuff. And, he's still going, and he's going to take Gareth Barry's record appearance, from him for the Premier League. And you think this is what Leeds produce. Leeds produced this, I mean, it's staggering. And one of the kind of tragedies of the last 20 years is, imagine if we'd have been able to keep some of these players, if we'd have still been in the Premier League. I mean, what kind of dynasty would we have been looking at? I mean, what kind of I mean, it's staggering to think, isn't it, what we could have been. And I mean, you think if we'd have kept Milner and Delph and, then that later goes on into Cook and Phillips.
Yeah.
I mean, it would have been absolutely, that central midfield position would have been wrapped up anyway, put it that way.
Yeah. Oh, mate. You say it all there, really. The record that he'll potentially set, and I think he will set it, I think he'll probably get it this season. If not, he'll probably stick somewhere else that he can break that record. I don't think it'll ever get broken. I don't think it'll ever get broken because players, they don't tend to stay in one country for that amount of time now. The players that are developed in this country are often seeking challenges elsewhere.
Yeah.
Injury, players don't play through the amount of injuries that he will have had and don't look after themselves in the way that he did. He's very old school in that kind of mentality, I think. It'll be a record that'll stick, and like you said, that'll be Leeds United that has produced that, which is why I say I think he's our best ever product. I know it's a bold statement.
I find it hard to disagree because when you look at the record and the achievements, I can't think of anyone who's topped it ever, really.
It's again, like I say, it's unnatural. I know, in terms of a gifted, I would say Harry Kewell. I don't want to say his name too loud, but in terms of his technical ability, was a better player than James Milner. But that's not the full package.
No.
Kewell could only do it for a number of years, before he then started on a very quick decline. To be able to do it to Milner's levels week in, week out for the amount of years that he's done it. I mean, 22 years he's been a professional. It's unbelievable, really. Just a top player, mate. And I so wish we could have kept him at the time, but seen him again since. I'd have loved to have had him back. For me, the season that we stayed up, he'd have been the perfect signing. Perfect signing. When Marsh, and we seem to be linked with him every summer, to be honest. The first season we came up, it made a lot of sense because I think he was available or we were sportsmen or whatever. But the season that we stayed up, if we had just got him over the line instead of signing Adams and Rocker and McKennie, and we'd have had so much more out of a James Milner. I'd go as far as saying I think we just stayed up.
Yeah, I think he could have been like a bit like Gordon Strachan was, like when he came, and it's that kind of older figurehead, seen it all, done it all, got the T-shirt. This is how it's done, boys, and set those standards in training, which I think, well, everything were lacking last year, wasn't it? Really, let's be honest. There we go. So that's a trawl through some academy products of Leeds have produced in the modern era. I want to thank everyone for the comments. Let's get to some of what you guys have been saying. Diggler, I hope that. Oh, sorry, go on, mate.
I was just going to say we might have to do a little preview because we could just do it live on the back of this because there's a lot of chat tonight, which is good to see.
Yeah, let's stick it on. Diggler, I hope that players like Archie don't leave anytime soon because he feels like he is the soul of the club, unlike last season where we had no soul. Indeed. Michael, guys, I think overhyping Archie is doing him a disservice. This is his first full season. You only have to look at what's happened to KP over the last couple of years. What do you mean overhyped? Yeah, okay. Yeah, the thumbnail does say greatest academy product of all time, but I meant one of those guys on the thumbnail, not just Archie, I promise.
I mean, at the end of the day, this is the start of the journey, and each of them that we've just spoke about had a very similar start to Archie. So, we're not saying that he is going to be the best ever product, but he started in the same fashion that all them other names did, that you could argue are our best ever academy products. And for me, I don't think we're doing them a disservice. And using KP as the example of what's happened over the last couple of years, that's got nothing to do with putting pressure on him as a kid. Like, that's got everything to do with him being at the best club in the world and competing with the best players in the world for starting for game time. For me, KP, I think, got nothing but love and adulation and support from Leeds fans. Yeah. I do think there's a certain special position that you put yourself in by being an academy graduate at Leeds because you do get a lot of rub. A lot of rub.
Absolutely. No, 100%. 100%. Gail, Calvin, what a player for us. Michael, Bielsa redefined KP by making him a defensive midfielder that played to his strengths. Gail also adding here, Ward-Prowse and Phillips pretty good for the Hammers. Yeah, we'll kind of wait and see how that's going on there. let's have a look elsewhere. Skip on James Milner, true professional in a game where many players constantly want to be noticed and acknowledged on and off the pitch. Do you think Milner will get into coaching, management? Do you think is I'm sure he's said something about his interest in going down that path.
I would imagine he'd be a perfect manager. You know, the amount of experience that he's got, the dedication that he shows, you know, the achievements that he's had. I think it'd be a nice balance between, you know, these players like a Steven Gerrard that has all the accreditation from being a player, but none of the acumen as a manager and tactically. I think he would be able to find that balance perfectly. I can only imagine that he would go on to be a top manager. But we'll see. We'll see. He clearly wants to play, doesn't he? He clearly just loves playing football.
Yeah, exactly. Diglo, was Kjol classed as an academy graduate? He got his debut at 17. I was at that match. He was an amazing player. That's a good question because obviously he came from Australia. I don't know how long he was actually with Leeds before he kind of
I think it were about 16 that he came up. I would class him as an academy graduate. I would. Just the same as Ian Hart, Gary Kelly, who were Irish, who came over and came as part of the academy. But for me, Kjol can't be in that discussion because he went on to achieve so little in comparison to what he could have done. Because his technical ability during the back end of the 90s, especially early 2000s, was phenomenal. He was excellent. He was arguably the best left midfielder in the world at one point. I would have had him over Giggs any day of the week, who offered so much more. But you cannot compare him to a James Milner, in my opinion, given what he then went on to do from probably the age of 28, 29 onwards. And I know he won the Champions League, but he wasn't the same player. He wasn't. But I get the question. I do understand that question. But for me, Milner takes the kind of spot. And I think the reason that we're maybe not comparing him in this kind of conversation is that I feel like it's a different setting to the players that we've compared Archie to.
Yeah.
It just feels different.
It feels different. Yeah, it does. Yeah. No, absolutely. Before we get on to looking ahead for Leeds for the rest of the week, some news to catch up on and Rotherham preview as well. Archie, final comments. I mean, we're just excited, aren't we, to see where this goes with him, aren't we? And do you think he keeps his place now that Connor Roberts has come into the team?
Oh, I don't know. I don't know.
Can we drop him though? I just don't. I don't know how you can drop him. I really don't because I don't know how you can. I don't know.
The thing is, Connor Roberts is an in his prime, championship winning right back. I mean, he's arguably the best right back we could have signed, considering what would be realistic, right? And I would put him in the top 3 championship right backs that are in the championship now. Probably maybe behind Ricardo Pereira and Kyle Walker-Peters. They're the only 2 that I would say are comparable to him. So do you then leave that on the bench, given the Welsh connection as well and the fact that he can slip in kind of seamlessly alongside Rodon and behind Dan James if Dan James gets back in and Ampadu and all this? I love Archie, and I think Archie's really stepped up and I think he's improved as a right back. But I find this topic really difficult because Connor Roberts is a specialist right back.
Yeah.
But then the question then does pose, mate, is do you bring him into the midfield? Because that's a bit of a different question. Again, I love Kamara. I think Kamara's played brilliantly. It's a great problem for the manager to have. But for me, I think, and it might feel a bit harsh, I think that's the route I would be looking to go down if I was the manager.
Can we play 12 players? Can we just maybe do that? Get another one on there. Maybe no one will notice. Just stick Archie in the team as well.
I want Connor Roberts in the team. I want Connor Roberts in the team as quickly as possible. As good as we are playing right now, I still think we're just off being maximum potential. And I think that is the right back. The left back was a problem when Byron was there, as much as he did a great job because he couldn't naturally take the ball on his left foot. From an attacking sense, it was causing us problems. We sorted that problem out now with Mr. Junior, who still won't defend properly, but he gives us more balance going forward, which is more important for this team in this division. On the right-hand side, as good as Archie has been, I think Connor Roberts will do that role better. And then can Archie do the role in midfield better than Kamara can? And I think he probably can.
You think? Yeah, I just love Kamara though. He's so silky.
I like Kamara's energy. That's what I really like. He's all over the pitch, and he is silky. It's going to be tough. It's going to be really, really
tough. It's a good
tough.
problem, though, isn't it? It feels like we've got quality options, and it feels like everyone's in a rich vein of form, and you're not carrying anyone at the minute, I think, which is really good. Nobody's rusty, especially now, Grove, we didn't see him for the first 4 months or whatever, and nobody's rusty now, are they? Everyone's getting games, and
we don't have to rush anything either. If there's any knocks or bumps, Pascal don't need to come straight back in because we're all right. Like, we're not desperate. And I also think, we don't need to be like completely against Archie taking rests. If he comes on, let's say he's benched for the weekend. I don't think he will be, but let's say he's benched for the weekend and then he plays the last 30 minutes. He'll be determined. He'll be fresh. He'll have all that quality and class for the last 30 minutes of that game. And, I don't think that's a bad thing at 17. I really don't think that's a bad thing at 17. We don't want to see him burn out. I don't think he would anyway. I don't think he's that kind of temperament. But I think we should, now that we've got options, we should look at rotating him and playing him maybe a bit more sparingly. But at the same time, the old adage, if you're good enough, you're old enough. I don't subscribe to this. I had a debate back and forward with somebody on Twitter the other day. I mean, anybody ever comes across my Twitter, I'm just ranting with people constantly. But people were trying to say that he's as good as Jude Bellingham was at 16, 17. I don't subscribe to that. And the reason I don't subscribe to it is mostly because I don't believe people actually watched Jude Bellingham when he was 16 or 17. I saw him a couple of times. You didn't though, did you? You probably saw him once when he played against Leeds. That's it. And that's just the truth. I'm not trying to be smart, but that's the truth. And, has Archie shown enough in 20-something games to be on Dortmund's radar? Probably. But would they come in and pay the money that they paid? I don't even think they paid a lot for Jude back then because I think Birmingham was struggling.
I don't think it was. Was it 10 million or something?
I think it's somewhere around that kind of figure. But would they pay enough to pay what they would need to take him away from Leeds? They wouldn't. No. Yeah, not yet. Yeah, let's not. Jude Bellingham is now arguably one of the best players in the world. He could win a Ballon d'Or next year at 19. He's already played 40-something games, I think it is, for England already. The guy's a freak. So, if the comment further up about doing him a disservice, that's doing him a disservice. Because it's just not there yet. But he could get there. He could definitely get there.
Yeah, it's exciting. All right, let's have a look at what's going on in Leeds United's world this week ahead of the Rotherham game at the weekend. We had some breaking news today as well. This is a tweet from Phil here. Luis Sinisterra's time at Leeds United is up. Set to join Birmingham, they wish, Bournemouth in the next 24 hours with the fee agreed. I think about 20 million is what I'm seeing quoted about. And Leeds United have avoided a loss on him, which is fantastic news when you're looking at a point of view from P&S, FFP, whatever you want to call it. Luis Sinisterra, I think we knew it was inevitable he was going to be going. He obviously wiggled his way out of the club on transfer deadline day back in the summer. Disappointed and angered a lot of the fan base, most of the fan base, I think. A damn talented player, though. One of those players that just has it, absolutely has it. And, we would have been arguably a better side with him in the team, possibly. But he's gone, and I think the right move for all parties. And the main thing for us is, that's another 20 million in the bank, Jason. That's huge for us.
My response to this when I saw it was good. I'm just glad. As talented as he was, and me and you had the joy of watching him earlier on this season, and for me, it just makes all the sense. And I think it says a lot about him. We spoke about Lewis Cook going to Bournemouth earlier, from Leeds United in the Championship being in the position that we were, and it being a poor move. This for me is a really weird move. He isn't playing all that often. I know Bournemouth fans like him, but he's still not been playing all that often. He's been linked with AC Milan and other moves. Why is he signing for Bournemouth? Why is he signing for Bournemouth? It just doesn't make sense to me. Does it show, you could say that he's been sold the vision or likes the project? Well, what's the project of Bournemouth? They're playing in front of 16,000 on the weekly, down on the south coast. They're never going to amount to much more than just another has-been Premier League runner, and that's no offence. I mean, Bournemouth are fighting way above they're punching above their weight constantly every season by being in the Premier League, and I know they've got good backing and Iriola and I just don't get it. I don't get it. So for me, yeah, the club showed their hand, as in Leeds in the summer, in wanting to keep him and build everything around him. He chose that he didn't want to do that. Fine. He doesn't owe Leeds United anything. I'd say, given his injury record and his, clear attitude towards Leeds United, I think it's a great move.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Guys, if you could get your likes in on the video, that would be much appreciated. And if you're not subscribed already, make sure you do that too. Well, looking ahead then to the weekend, Jason, it's hotting up in the Championship. We've got the league table there. Leicester obviously still top, flying high, although, I mean, I'm reading all about how Leicester fans are bored with Maresca's style of play, and there's all sorts of crazy things coming out. I mean, I'm absolutely staggered by it. Southampton, obviously on fantastic form, scored an unbelievable goal in the FA Cup themselves. I mean, they're like us, really. They're bang at it at the moment, no doubt about it. Barely seem to ever drop a point. Ipswich obviously tailed off there, but nestled in between Southampton and Ipswich, you've got Leeds United there. The phenomenal effort to close the gap. 18 games won. Southampton got a game in hand on us, but I mean, it's a position where if you'd have bit us hands off, wouldn't you, for that a month ago?
Absolutely, mate. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, looking at them, that form. I mean, Leicester's form's unbelievable. 23 wins out of 30. It's incredible. And Leicester being unhappy with it. I mean, sometimes, points come over performances if that's the level of points return that you're getting. It doesn't matter, just get back to the Premier League, innit? So, where I do believe us and Southampton are trying to do it in a bit of a different way. I think us especially, I think we play nice, attractive football to watch most of the time as well. But them statistics that you can see there in front of you, I mean, we've lost 6 games out of 30 on the back of only winning 6, I think, last season. Yeah. I think 6 or 7, something like that. The turnaround in the home form. I mean, I remember thinking last season, when are we going to win at Ellen Road again? Like it was crazy. And I mean, now with us, Liverpool and Man City, the only undefeated home records in the country. In this season. So I think that the turnaround has been incredible, and the performances have improved drastically since West Brom and Preston, and since the 2 away games that were lost at the end of last year. I think it's going to be punch for punch, mate. It's literally going to go week after week after week, and we just need to keep winning games. And who slips first is going to be very telling. And unfortunately, because we've got that game and we're a point behind, if it's us first, it will create a 7-point gap at any given time. That's the potential. So we need to make sure that we just carry on doing our job. We have got the potential to win every single game between now and the end of the season. I don't think we'll do that, but we have got the potential to, so we can go into every game believing that we can win. And I think, we just need to maintain that. I said it to you earlier on in the season. We need to make sure that we carry on winning all of his home games. Every single home game, boom, 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 we need to win. And then the odd away game, we need to make sure that we do the utmost to keep the slips to a minimum. But if we do have a slip, it's a point rather than losing all 3. And if we can do that, but it's only 16 games, I think, left to go now. We can finish in the top 2. We can finish in the top 2. I think Leicester will still end up taking one of them spots. Regardless of their they've had a bit of a wobble, but still 12 points ahead of us. It's incredible. But Southampton are catchable. They've got a lot of tough games coming up. They've got 4 of the top 6 to play away from home between now and the end of the season. We've got 9 of the bottom 10 to play. It's I've said it before. I think it's in our hands. So
and I think just bringing that table back up again, you look at goals conceded as well. It's it's in, that defensive record we're putting out now is so strong, and it could be absolutely key going forward. Looking at the weekend's games then for ourselves and Southampton. Funnily enough, if you'd have asked me a week ago, I'd have probably said Southampton will absolutely, wipe the floor with Huddersfield. But we saw Huddersfield, there might just be a little bit something about them. They've not got a permanent manager yet. They won 4-0 last weekend. It's not going to be quite the same match that it was a couple of weeks ago, is it, for Southampton? It might just present an opportunity. Maybe, if Huddersfield could just get a point or something against them.
I mean, Ipswich went to Huddersfield earlier on this season and dropped points. Yeah. It's a championship. Anything can happen. We went to Rotherham earlier on the season and dropped points. We made hard work of it against QPR. We drew against Sheffield Wednesday at home. Like, these things can happen. I know we're a different beast to what we were then, but it only takes one game to kind of spiral your form out of control sometimes. A dodgy decision. Anything can happen, and we just need to make sure we carry on doing our business. Huddersfield are going to want to play well in front of their new manager Wayne Rooney anyway, because he's going to be in the crowd this week, kind of.
That'd be amazing.
Mate. We just got to believe. We've got to keep on believing. I'm telling you, the boys are believing. The team believe that they can do this. I 100% feel that.
Yeah, I don't remember a feeling around Leeds like this for a long, long time, where it's just confidence and everything seems to be clicking. It's just absolutely phenomenal. And as Michael says here, Huddersfield drew with Southampton at home in November, so who knows? Gail, 16 games to go for the mighty Leeds, indeed. Leeds, meanwhile, we've got Rotherham at home, who were planted bottom of the championship. They've won 3 games all season. They're on 19 points, dead cert for relegation, you would think.
Do you know that Rotherham have not won an away game since November 2022? 500 days.
I don't know how I feel about that, because
Leeds United home will be.
Dr. Leeds is out of office at the minute.
No, we don't do that anymore, Brownie. We're not that team anymore. We don't do that anymore.
No, exactly.
But they've not won away from home since November 2022. That's wild.
You just need a couple early goals, don't you? You just need to take your opportunities, get a couple of goals, put it to bed, and move on.
We should absolutely steamroll them, mate. The way that we're playing, we should absolutely steamroll them. And you're absolutely spot on. We need a couple of early goals, nothing silly. Don't make it hard for ourselves by doing something stupid. We should win. We should win 3, 4, 5. I mean, the crazy thing is, Digler's probably saying that a little bit tongue-in-cheek. If we make the most of our chances, we absolutely could beat teams like Rotherham 7-0, because we dominate so much and we have so much attacking talent that we should be scoring goals for fun. We're just not clinical enough, and that's why we ended up, beating Ipswich 4-0 at home and stuff like that, because we have these moments where it just all clicks and the ball goes in. I mean, even the other night against Plymouth, the Rutter chance were a bit of a scuff. It still ended like you know what I mean? We still didn't really want to finish the game off.
I know. That's one thing, actually, when Nonto is on it, he's a good finisher, is Nonto. Like, he can take a chance. Like, he
strikes the ball well, doesn't he?
He strikes the ball well. So hopefully he's on it as well. He seems to be growing in confidence too, which is good. It's close succession of fixtures as well. We've got Swansea then on Tuesday, and then we're back down to Plymouth as well. Just want to get your... sorry.
Just before you got to hold that, because I don't want you to lose a question, but who do you think starts at the weekend?
Is this if Dan James is coming back into the...
Let's say Dan James is fit, Pascal's going to be out. Dan James is fit and Connor Roberts is available. Who starts? I think we'd be in agreement that it'll be Bamford, Rutter, Somerville, the regular faces. But then you've got some decisions to make around the other players, haven't you?
Yeah, I would be keeping it exactly what it was. Not obviously the FA Cup game, but the previous league game. The thing is, the Dan James thing is interesting, because if Dan James comes back, I find it really hard to not have him in the team, because he's been phenomenal. But I think Willie's on a bit of a kind of rebirth at the moment, and I don't necessarily want to stop that. But I think you've got to go with James. I would stick with Archie. I would still stick with Archie. Certainly after this show as well. One of our greatest academy products, we hope. But yeah, I would stick with Archie. And yeah, just try and keep that team as similar as possible. I think, unfortunately, Mr. Perot is going to have to go back to the bench. I think you keep Bamford in there.
You're saying you'd keep it the same with Dan James coming back in for Nonto if it was you?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. I mean, I tend to agree because I think James has actually been our player of the season. If I was to give the award to somebody right now, I'd say it's probably him. I think I probably agree with you on the other side as well. I think Archie probably should stay at right back for this one and let Connor Roberts earn his way into the team. The question I'm going to fire at you is what do you think Farke will do?
I think Farke will go for the same team as the Bristol game.
Exactly the same. So you think James will be on the bench?
Oh, yeah. Oh, that's tricky. That's really tricky because I think I get the sense Farke is like, if somebody takes their opportunity, he doesn't want to stop it. He will allow it to kind of flourish.
I agree with you. I agree. I think if James is fit at the weekend, I think Nonto starts.
Yeah.
I think James is on the bench.
What happens if Nonto scores again? And what happens if Nonto... I mean, is James out of the team, which is wild, isn't it?
Well, then he'll get the 20, 25 minutes that Nonto will get and then have to work his way back into the team. Like, the facts are, some managers work like that. And, you know, it is almost dead men's boots, isn't it? Ampadu comes back in alongside Rodon for me. I thought Cooper played really well the other day, by the way. I thought Cooper was really good. I actually think he was better than Rodon on the day, but I still don't want to see him playing if he doesn't have to. Ampadu and Striker in front of him, but I'm glad he's there. I am glad he's there. He's a good fourth choice option. I mean, Cresswell is now fifth choice centre back at this stage.
Just can't get a sniff, can he?
Slow down the pecking order, but I get it. I absolutely get it. So yeah, I would start. I think he will start Archie at right back. He might throw in a curveball and start him over Kamara, but I don't see it.
No.
The one player I don't want to see dropped, and I would be really disappointed if I see him drop, is Gruev. Because for me, I think he's been sensational. I mean, my man of the match the other day, got man of the match from BBC. He was excellent. I mean,
his passing completion rate is. Have you seen the figures on his his pass completion for the last 6 or 7 games? I mean,
the thing that makes that even more impressive, Brownies, is it's not just 5-yard passes, side-to-side passes. It sprays, boom, 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 and it's his reading of the game. He's good in a tackle as well. Like he's really good for a tackle. If he was a bit quicker, he'd be an unbelievable centre midfielder, but he wouldn't have then come at the Championship. I think that's the only thing that really stops him from being I'm not going to say world class, but a top class centre midfielder. He's just really slow, but he makes up for it most of the time in positioning and determination. His work rate to get back and help his team. I love watching him. I love a midfielder like Gruev.
What do you think about the recovery time, though? I mean, players like him, 120 minutes they put in the other night, Road on 120 minutes. That's going to be a challenge. I hope I hope we don't see that on the pitch at the weekend. They've had to do this.
2 games in 4 days as well. Now Saturday,
yeah.
Tuesday away at Swansea, more miles and whatnot. The one thing I will say to that is I expect us to have a lot of the ball again and be very comfortable against Rotherham for long parts of the game. It should really be no more difficult than training. Given the levels of ability difference. And this is why it's really important that we go and we kill the game early so we can kind of manage the game properly. But I do think it's important that he rotates the squad between the 2 games. And then Archie didn't start. Did Archie start the other day? Yeah, he did, didn't he? He started right back. No, he didn't.
No, he didn't.
He didn't start. He didn't start the other day. No, he didn't. Byron started right back. So Archie's actually, primed to come back in on Saturday, really. He did. I think he played 40 minutes, maybe.
What did Kamara do? Did Kamara play the 120?
Kamara started and came off for
Gray, was it? Did he come off for that?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. I think that's what it was. There were a lot of. We ended up with like 5 strikers on the pitch again at one point, or 5 attackers on the pitch again at one point. So I can't quite remember the exact way that the subs worked, because Byram came off, Archie came and played right back for a bit. Then he ended up playing in midfield, and we ended up playing somebody else at right back. I can't remember exactly how it worked, but the positioning were all over the place at one point. But the point is that Archie didn't play 120 minutes, so it should really be good for Saturday. Firpo, however, did. Jesus. Yeah.
Wow. We're getting money's worth at last start. We're getting his money's worth. We're before that contract expires. Blimey. Let's, take it.
He's playing for a contract, that lad, I'm telling you.
He is. It was the FA Cup 4th round the other night. We've got through a resounding 4-1 win eventually. Just want to, before we wrap up, look ahead towards that 5th round cup tie against Chelsea. It's exciting, isn't it, to be at this stage of the competition, playing a Premier League team against a bitter rival. I can't stand Chelsea. I really cannot stand Chelsea. I really don't want to see us lose that game, I've got to admit. It's the first time we've played Chelsea in the FA Cup since the famous 1970 FA Cup final, which is still, I think it's in the top 7 of programmes watched on TV of all time in this country. Phenomenal. I think about 29 million people watched it. I mean, it's an exciting tie, isn't it, Jason? There's a lot to Leeds and Chelsea, isn't there, as a rivalry, as a game?
Yeah, absolutely. I think of over the years, even in the 2000s, the good Leeds United team against the good Chelsea team, because they weren't the team that they ended up becoming under Abramovich, the likes of when Hasselbank were there and Good Johnson and Poyet, Wise, Di Matteo, Marcel Desailly. They had a really strong squad early 2000s, and we were kind of competing to be Premier League champions, but without really being Premier League champions. So we're Arsenal, Man United, then there were us and Chelsea, and sometimes Liverpool flirted with it as well. So I that's the era that I kind of grew up with, thinking about Chelsea. And there's always been a bit of rivalry there. We still have the song of how much we hate Chelsea, and it still means something even to younger generation of Leeds fans, I would say. I feel like you're trying to entice me into saying what I said before the stream starts today with regards to potentially winning the FA Cup. So I'm gonna say it. I'm gonna say it anyway. But this is how I feel about it. Like, for me, promotion is the be-all and end-all for what this season's about. It is vital that we go back up, given everything that the 49ers want to do and our potential for growth, and how much more difficult it becomes if you don't go up at the first time of asking. But what I would say to the importance of the cup is that it still means a lot. Like, you don't get many opportunities to be successful in cup competitions. Once you get to a certain stage, you start looking that you're not that far away. We get through this, we're into the quarterfinals of the FA Cup, and in a one-off game, anything can happen. And what I said to Browney before the stream started was, if you were to insert this club into the Premier League now as a direct replacement for a Sheffield United or a Luton or a Burnley or whoever goes down this season, if we were to be in the Premier League this season, I believe this squad, as it is now, would be good enough to finish around 13th or 14th in the Premier League. And I don't think that's unrealistic to say that. I would put us in and around Brentford, Palace, and some of these other teams. We've got some quality in this side while it's inexperienced. But if we were in that position of finishing 13th, 14th in the Premier League, just like Palace, Brentford, etc., and they got to the 5th round quarterfinal of the FA Cup, they'd be thinking that they can win it. They'd be believing that they can win it. So I start to then think, well, even though we're a championship squad, why can't we win it? Like, I know it's unrealistic. It's very, very unlikely. I'm not sat here saying I think we're going to win the FA Cup, but I'm saying that if we get through this tie, I believe there's a chance that we can. And it would be sensational to do something like that, especially as a modern day championship club. It just don't happen. People are saying, well, Sunderland did it against us, or it's different. Like, the football landscape is so different now because of the money that's involved. But it can happen. Bradford City getting to the final of the League Cup only 10 years ago?
10, 11 years ago,
That is a bigger shock than it would be us getting to this FA Cup final with this team that we've got. So it can be done. I know it's unlikely, but it can be done. And I don't subscribe to this idea that it would get into the way of a promotion push. I actually think it helps.
Yeah, definitely.
The extra replay didn't help, and extra time didn't help.
Don't
I get that. Don't need replays. But in terms of the momentum that it gives you, you know, all these players are playing to be now in the starting 11 for the Chelsea game. Best believe they all want to play in that game. And the same will go the longer we go in the competition. I'm telling you, Chelsea are there for us. Another beat Villa handily the other night, but Chelsea are all over the place. We've got enough in our team to be able to beat them.
Yeah, absolutely. No, definitely. And it's going to be, if we get through, then it's exciting, isn't it? Then when you get to that stage, it's just going to be, I mean, quarter-final of the FA Cup, blimey.
Yeah.
It's been too long. It's been far too long for this club and competing. Oh, is it a bit of an acid test, though, for, let's kind of, you know, the elephant in the room with Farker is, yes, he's brilliant in the Championship, but he's failed in the Premier League. Is this a little preview as to Leeds United in the Premier League under Farker? Can we read that much into it, do you think?
I don't think so, personally, because I think a squad would look very different. I think the way that we would then be coaching and training week in, week out for Premier League opposition would be different. You know, we would be more prepared for Daniel Farker's version of what we look like in the Premier League week in, week out if we're in the Premier League.
Yeah.
I think it's an acid test of the players more than it is of him. And I think it'll be them that then go out and execute on the day to be able to bridge that gap of the quality with the desire and the passion, which I know we will show in spades. So I personally don't think so. I'm not subscribing. The more and more I kind of go on, the more and more I'm not subscribing to this worry and panic that some Leeds fans are having with what will Daniel Farker do in the Premier League. Because the facts are, if he doesn't, we'll find it out very quickly and the 49ers will replace him. So it doesn't matter. The 49ers are going to be brutal. It literally doesn't matter. I think just get on board with this journey for now. Give him the opportunity in the Premier League. I think he's going to take it, mate. I think he's shown enough this season to show that he can adapt and change.
Yeah.
He's dealt with a lot, man management-wise, he's dealt with a lot this season and he's come through all the tests. And, you know, if it weren't for Leicester and Southampton and Ipswich being so phenomenal this season, any other year would be in the top two. Would be coursing to a promotion. So,
yeah. Well, mate, continue. Absolutely, indeed. Good stuff. Oh, okay, we're going to wrap things up there. Thank you very much for joining this week's Leeds United debate and also a little bit of a preview and looking ahead to the weekend's game against Rotherham. If you've enjoyed the video, please do smash a like on it and subscribe to the channel for more content on Leeds United and our other clubs across West Yorkshire. And if you listen on Spotify as well, please do leave us a rating and review. We'll be back again very soon. I've been Stephen Brown. With me has been Jason Booker. Jason, thank you very much.
Thank you, mate.
And we'll see you all again next time. Thanks for watching.